All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Salute to Youth. I'd like to introduce our public service panel today. We have Deputy Clarissa Torres, Mackenzie Doman, Tina Hooks, and Nancy Ramirez. So Deputy Torres, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Deputy Clarissa Torres. I've been with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department now for 13 years. I worked a multitude of assignments. We start with custody, that's in jails, courts, or buses. Then we go out to patrol, which is what you typically think of with law enforcement, where we go and answer calls for service. And then we move on to specialized units, which is where I'm at right now. I do recruitment 100% of my time. And then there's various other specialized units like Detective Bureau, SWAT, K-9, and so on and so forth.
All right, thank you. Ms. Doman, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie, and I work for LA County Public Works. I've worked there for over 6 years. At Public Works, we are mainly a civil engineering organization, and we deal with all of the infrastructure for LA County. So that means your roads, your bridges, your buildings, your sewer lines, your water lines, everything that you see around you that builds up our city, that and our county. That is what we work on. I currently work as a project manager for our stormwater capture project. So what we're doing is we're capturing stormwater. When it rains, it hits the pavement, goes into the storm drain. Typically, it goes directly out to our channels and then to our ocean. And so I work to manage projects where we're diverting that water, capturing it, and then we're either using it for irrigation, so watering parks, or we are infiltrating it into the ground, letting it soak into the ground to recharge our groundwater, which we then can use later for drinking water. So that's what I do with Public Works.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Hooks, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure, thank you. Good morning. My name is Tina Hooks, and I'm a Deputy District Attorney with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. And I know for many of you that may be new or unfamiliar, but my job parallels what Deputy Clarissa Torres does. They work on the front lines and go out and patrol and enforce the laws of our state of California. And sometimes they have to make an arrest. And I'm the next chapter of that work. And so once someone is arrested, then in my job, we review the police report that was filed and we make a determination as to whether or not we can file charges with the evidence that was presented to us. And if we can, then we take on the role of prosecuting that case in the courtroom so that we can, in hopes of trying to get justice for those who were harmed by that action. So that's what I do, and I've been doing that for 22 years.
All right, thank you. And then Ms. Ramirez, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Nancy Ramirez. I am an Assistant Regional Administrator. I work for the Department of Children and Family Services, acronyms DCFS. I've been working for the department for 19 years. I've come up through the ranks. I started as an intern. I started, as some of you in this audience, as a student, listening to an informational, and kind of worked my way in and worked myself through the ranks. Our department pretty much, investigates child abuse and neglect investigations. We work with children and families in the community, whether they have a voluntary case or a court case, linking them with, supportive services that they may need.
All right, thank you. I guess we'll just go in the same order. And since we did question number 1, pretty much we did our introductions, we'll go on to question number 2. What is the relevant education and training for your profession or career path?
So for the Sheriff's Department, the minimum education you need right now is a high school diploma. However, keep in mind that you need to be able to communicate. Communication is going to be one of your primary functions. You're going to have to be able to write because you're going to be writing a lot of reports. And then they're also going to expect you to be physically fit because that's going to be part of your academy training. So make sure you guys are working out. Make sure you're good with communication skills. Make sure you are fluent with your writing. And just make sure that you guys are very aware of the choices you guys are making, because there is a very extensive background process that takes about 6 to 9 months when you guys are getting hired, and they look at everything, your personal choices, social media, who you talk to, who you hang out with. So keep that in mind.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so for public works or as a civil engineer, so my relevant education, I graduated from high school. In high school, I took a lot of math and science classes. So if you can right now, those are classes that I would highly recommend. And then in college, I got my bachelor's in civil engineering with an environmental emphasis. So again, a lot of math and science, civil engineering specific classes. And one of the things that I would recommend is there are a lot of different engineering tracks you can go. For civil engineering, one of the things that some people are interested in is taking an environmental engineering track. Here at Public Works, we unfortunately only hire civil engineers. So I was lucky enough that I did a civil engineering track with an environmental emphasis. And so I was able to get a lot of those environmental classes and get that experience, and still was able to be hired at Public Works. So one of the things I recommend for students going into college is to get that civil engineering degree and get that broad range of experience. And if you're interested in environmental, which is also a great degree to get as well, but if you could just tack that on to the civil engineering degree, that's a great way to get that experience. I also have a master's in public administration. I don't need this to be a civil engineer, but I do work in the public sector and I really enjoy working in the public sector. And I wanted to learn more about the organization of the public departments as well as how to be a great manager. So I graduated with that last year, and it was another degree that I really enjoyed getting. Yeah, that's what I have background in education wise to be a civil engineer with Public Works.
Awesome, thank you.
All righty, so I guess I'm up next. So first of all, to do my job as a deputy district attorney, you actually have to be an attorney. And so in order to do that, you've got to complete high school and you've got to go to college and get a degree in really anything that you choose. And then you've got to go on to law school. And when you finish law school, there's a really big test that's called the bar exam. And you have to pass the bar exam in order to get your license to be able to practice in the state of California as an attorney. Now, as you're here in high school and you may be grappling with ideas of what you want to be. For some people, they think that attorneys is like out of their league. And I'm here to tell you that it's not. If you like to argue with your parents and you like to talk, those are advocacy skills. And maybe you're doing it in the context of maybe because you want to do something for yourself. But if you start thinking about that in a broader scale and see that you want to maybe advocate on behalf of a particular cause or a particular person, then you start to tap right into those skills. And so if you want to get paid full time to advocate, talk, and debate, then an attorney is right up your field. So in high school, if you have the opportunity to take speech and debate classes, those would be really good classes for you. Also, if you have a criminal justice pathway or you have some classes about criminal justice, those would be really good courses to kind of start introducing yourself to this particular career path.
Okay, thank you.
That would be my turn. So for child welfare, that's pretty much the bigger arena of my position. Sociology and psychology courses. So if that intrigues you, also communication skills and writing, especially with court report writing and a lot of case management and stuff like that. For our department, there's a lot of different entry levels. So there are there's clerical or more administrative positions where you could get in with an AA. We have a lot of staff that got in with a high school diploma for back in time. But to be a social worker, a children's social worker, you need at least a bachelor's degree in some sort of, sociology, psychology arena. For my position, the department offers a lot of opportunity. I was able to take the opportunity and advantage of the resource in our department to pursue higher education. So I have a master's in social work, so an MSW degree for what I carry at this point. But and as somebody in high school, just, talk to your counselors with career, or career advocates at the high schools, just to kind of, find your niche. I remember being in high school and taking like a little survey to kind of find, because I felt a little confused and kind of lost and undecided of what I wanted to do. And that kind of led a path of more or less what I like to do, which was in the helping field.
All right, thank you all so much. We're going to go on to the next question, which is, what is a fun thing about your job?
So as a deputy, there are numerous fun things that you guys get to encounter. Probably the most is that you get to experience the world in a different way than most individuals. You're going to see, a walk of life that's different, and people are, for the most part, naive too. You're going to be right at the front of very quickly evolving and very intense calls. And then depending on which path you choose to go to in the deputy field, it depends on what your specialties start, what they draw you to. So if you're on a SWAT team, you're going to get called out to that kind of work. There's detective work, there's undercover work. But as a regular deputy out in the field, the most exciting thing is you just don't know what call you're going to get next. You can go from being a counselor and helping a mom and a child who are having an issue at home, to going and helping somebody who needs medical aid, to going and dealing with a more violent crime, and then back again to helping a school counselor with a student who got caught with something they weren't supposed to have. So you just don't know what you're going to get. It's exciting, and it keeps you on your toes.
So something that's fun about my job is seeing a project from beginning to end. So right now I'm working as a project manager, but previously I was working as a project planner. So I was coming up with the ideas for these stormwater quality projects, doing the initial concept and planning, determining if these projects were able to be built. And then they move into the design phase, where you're actually having designers work on the project and creating it on paper. And then the most exciting part is when it goes into construction. Seeing a project that you had just an idea in your head, then an idea on paper, and then seeing it actually built in the real world is really amazing. I get to go out to the field periodically, and I get to see the project progress from just the initial stages of digging a giant hole in the ground to putting in these giant infrastructures that go under the earth and then are covered up again. You might not even know they're there. And then we usually put landscaping and recreational facilities above these projects. So getting to see that and then seeing the community interact with them, that is really rewarding and a really great part of my job. So.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so like Deputy Torres, part of the fun parts about my job is that we work hand in hand with our law enforcement partners. And oftentimes when we're prosecuting a case, we need to go out and do crime scene investigations alongside our detectives. And so that can take us to a variety of different places. We get to test out sometimes when we're bringing in new scientific evidence that we may have in terms of our cases to present evidence, whether it's dog sniffing evidence or gunshot residue evidence or whatever. Sometimes we need to go to the lab so that we as the attorneys can understand how this stuff works, because it's our job to be able to, through our questions, explain that to the jury. And so we need to make sure we understand it ourselves. And so that takes us in those places and those spaces. And then in the courtroom itself, it's a lot of fun when you get to do pretty cool things inside the courtroom and explain different type of evidence. I had a really cool case where some of the key part of the evidence was dog sniffing evidence and how they were trained to alert on certain things and to be able to develop that evidence in court. It's really, really fun. So there's never a dull moment in my job. No case is ever the same, even if it lends itself to be the same charge. It never plays out the same. The facts are never exactly the same. And sometimes the legal issues aren't exactly the same. And so as a result, it keeps you on your toes and it keeps you guessing. But in the end, that's the cool thing. And then in the end, just knowing that you're helping people and giving them a sense of closure or a sense of justice is something that's incredibly rewarding.
Thank you so much.
All right, like some of my colleagues said, my partners in this panel, definitely never a dull moment. Child welfare is very dynamic, very spontaneous. Every day is different. Because of the nature of the job, we work with live people, with families. People are different, circumstances are very different. So I would say a big rewarding part of my job is just to see the evolution of the families when you start working with them, kind of where we start and kind of where they end up with all the supportive services and resources that you embrace them with. I think that's pretty rewarding. Also, just networking and meeting new people in the community is pretty exciting. Being part of initiatives, getting to know our communities and its resources, and just being part of developing and being part of committees to develop services based on, the needs of the community.
All right, thank you so much. We have 1 minute left. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you later in the next panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.